have this feeling anytime we choose.
Yes, everybody, welcome back to Uzi Mumbai, the hub of everything Mumbai City FC, where today we have a bit of a video which might create a lot of controversy, which might not go down well with the fans, but it's a video which we think deserves a lot of attention and deserves a lot of the criticism slash opinions that follows with it. It's about Costa and whether was he a successful manager or no. So let's start from the beginning. Jorge Costa, the legendary football player for FC Porto and the Portugal national side, was hired as Mumbai City's FC's manager in 2018-19 after he was in demand with a lot of teams. One notable team, Delhi Dynamos. He had a good preseason. The signings were great. They looked fantastic on paper. They were playing fantastic in the preseason, and the fans expected. There was actually no expectation going into the season. I think the fans were just generally mute and they wanted to gather any kind of good news they could. So when the team started performing really well in the middle of the season, I think the expectations were right off the chart and people could not believe what they were seeing. They were obviously, Costa spoke about the budgetary constraints, Costa spoke about his recruitment, and Costa spoke about how he thinks that the budget is not the best. But despite all that, managing a top 4 finish was looked upon as a massive achievement, and one that should not be underestimated, at any point of sense. Obviously, we were aiming for the stars, and there was a whole excellent run of form in the middle, and then the semi-finals happened when the team came crashing down, and I think that's where it really fell apart for Costa, right? What do you think, Shlok?
Yeah, obviously off the back of season 4, which was abysmal, it was really refreshing to see a place where we were actually gunning for, even going into the semi-finals, there was a bit of hope that we might just go to the finals, we might just win, because we had beat Bengaluru, we had beat some really big teams, we beat Northeast, I think we drew to Northeast and then we lost to them. But other teams, we beat them as well. We beat ATK 3-1 at a point of time. And then it was a good run of form going. But, when we came into this season, I think we still expected, he's a great manager and he knows how to work with the budget. With one season where he got to analyze how the Indian ecosystem was, maybe he'll be able to do better this season or replicate it.
Exactly. I think that's where it kind of went wrong for him. He knew what worked in India, he saw what worked in India, so he tried to build his team around a similar formula. I think a bit better about all of this, logo.
Yeah, so I think he stuck to his devices from last season. So we have Sugu and Machado, who were retained, but we saw a slight tweak in their position. So Sugu, naturally he's a right winger, so he was pushed out there, but I don't know how effective it was because he's lost a lot of his pace, and with that he's lost dribbling ability as well. So I think he would have been better as the poacher he was. Machado as well, he was played as a number 10 sometimes this season. Last season he was played primarily as a 6. So again, with that, when you lose that pace and that edge, you really compromise on some of the decisions, the important decisions you make in the match. Right?
Exactly. Obviously you had some good signings make through, but I don't think they were signings that we expected. I think when we signed Chamiti as the number 9, there was this little hype created beforehand, and we were very excited as a fan base to, Chamiti, he'd been a fabulous striker in Tunisia. He's won the, African Cup, the Champions League. And I think fans were very excited, but what we realized very quickly is that it wasn't a typical number 9 that Costa wants. Because if you look at a Costa system, you're looking at a Mourinho system. A tall 6'4" poacher, he's going to be in the box, he's going to get a lot of crosses in, he's going to have a lot of heading opportunity. And I think that's where Costa faltered. He tried to stick with his guns while also trying to adapt to a new system, which we feel that was an absolute replica of Sergio Lobera. He tried to be like Sergio Lobera, and I think that's where we messed up.
Yeah, we can see that in the signings as well, right? You look at Larby, very similar to Edibedia. We look at Diego Carlos, left winger, who's dominant foot is his right foot.
Yeah.
And then on the right wing we have Sugu, dominant foot, right foot,
The crossing.
plays a bit like Jackie. Yeah, out and out winger.
Yeah. And I think that's one point is that though we try to adapt to a Costa system, I don't think our signings were a definite upgrade from last year. If you look at the foreign contingent, yes, you might argue that we have an upgrade from last year. But then you look at the Indian contingent, right? I think the midfield was an absolute fantastic recruitment process. But in terms of defense, losing a set captain, a set player, a set foreign player in Goyan cost us a lot.
Big loss.
Then when we lost Joyner Lorenko, who had been phenomenal for us, and we got Pratik Chaudhary, who I think most of us thought was going to be a backup player, but and Sarthak Goli, who was shifted to centre back, was a surprise as well. So in terms of upgrades, I don't think we had a definite upgrade in terms of a defense, but I think that's where we lost a lot of our steam and a lot of our systems backbone.
Right. Because as we know, this year he changed his tactics, and earlier we used to have 10 men behind the ball, the team defense as a whole. And now when you're moving into a possession-based system, it means that when you're losing the ball, your players are in very different positions, and you have a maximum of 6 players behind the ball. Right?
Yeah.
And when you have downgraded from a system, like from a defensive backbone from last season, you would naturally concede more goals. And I think a lot of it just goes down to losing the stability the earlier defense had. We only had Subhasish Bose and Souvik Chakrabarti, who were consistent defenders this season, who had played in the last season as well. And Souvik wasn't that great this season either, so then we had Sarthak coming in eventually. That led to a bit of confusion there, I suppose.
I think definitely. I think when we signed Sarthak, he was meant to be that Souvik Chakrabarti upgrade at right back, but I think we faltered. We didn't get the best Indian centre back, so I think he was forced to play centre back. Then Souvik did leave. Sarthak was shifted to centre back. Pratik Chaudhary became a first team regular, and I think that's where the tactics really went haywire, because he tried to continue his own defensive counter-attacking system. He wanted to do that crossing game, but he also wanted to keep possession a lot more. But it was quite aimless possession. There was no end final product to the possession system, and I think that's where we faltered a lot this year.
Yeah, definitely, because it really makes you wonder what we would have done with the target man, because all this time we saw we're out wide, Carlos or Bitin or Sugu has the ball, they're trying to cross it in, Tremiti doesn't reach it, or maybe the player at the far post can't reach it, which brings me to how he wanted the goal scored, and that would be nodding it in at the far post. And if we look at the goals we scored against BFC in our away fixture, the ones from Carlos, I think that is his ideal goal for this season, the one from Larby,
Exactly.
the blueprint.
The cross from Larpi to Diego Carlos. I think as a whole, it wasn't the best system this year, and there was a lot of confusion, which eventually led to his sacking. And that brings up the big question: was the promise of Jorge Costa false promise? Shlok, what is your thought of this statement?
I think that he performed really well according to the budget he was given, but there's always a lot left to do when you can think about what could have been. Like had we, you can see how many big chances we missed with our foreign signings. I think Serge Kevin missed 8, Chermiti, Larbi missed 6 each, Sugu missed 4, and that hurts a lot, because we could have been right up there. We could have been in the top 4 if we didn't miss those chances. And sometimes and a lot of our goals actually were scrappy goals from
Very.
set pieces. If we had a more, if we had a more definite system of attacking, our means of production weren't so ineffective, then I suppose we could have gotten better there.
Definitely. So, what is your verdict about Costa?
Well, I'm really happy with his tenure because he has, he's inculcated a very long-lasting locker room culture. We can say that he's created a family, and he said this in his interviews as well, that our family factor will win us some games because that unity gets you going sometimes. And I think you would know better about the whole transitional phase, now and then going to Lobera and whatnot, I guess.
I think definitely he has left us a better team in some terms, in some ways, but in some ways I think there was a lot left to be desired. And whoever's the next manager, if it's Lobera, great. If it's any other person, I think the foundation that Costa has left us with is definitely going to be the massive boost for the next manager. Well, I think that's it for the video. I hope you enjoy. I hope it brings about a little bit of conversation about how you felt about Costa, because a lot of people believe he was a great manager. Some believe that his great run was just paper over cracks and it wasn't really building to something special. What do you guys think about Costa and his tenure? Tell us in the description, in the comments below, and like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you soon.